Hey, what's up, everybody? Welcome back to the channel. Today, we're going to talk about whether or not the Trek Emonda is Trek's best bike. I happen to believe it is. So I do try to make these ride evaluations as real world relevant as possible. So I'm going to talk about the things that I value and find really essential in a bike, beginning with the ease of fit. How easy was it for me to get comfortable on a bike and adapt a good riding position? From there, I'll talk about my ride impressions, meaning the way the bike behaved rolling along on the flats, whether I was going slow, fast, or rolling along in a pace line. We're obviously going to talk about the cornering characteristics, the climbing of the bike, and I'm also going to talk a little bit about the bike's high-speed behavior. But before we jump into that, let's get into a little bit of my history with the Emonda. The first time I ever saw a Trek Emonda was the aluminum version. It was black on black, and I thought the bike was stunning. We were in a group ride, and I just couldn't keep my eyes off the bike. I thought that Trek did a really, really good job with hydroforming their aluminum of that bike because it was swoopy and kind of sexy, which is a little bit different than the other two aluminum bikes that were the contemporaries of the Trek Emonda, that being the Cannondale Cat 10 and the Specialized LA Sprint. The interesting thing about that bike, though, is that for some reason that bike did not get a lot of love. It was really overshadowed by the Cat 10 and the LA Sprint, and also by the rest of Trek's line. So as competent and as beautiful a bike as it was, it just kind of like fizzled off very quietly into the night. Trek's road bike range is topped off by the Madone, which is their aero race bike, which also features the ISO speed decoupler. Then there's the Domane, which is the comfort endurance all-arounder. And I've known people who have actually put gravel tires on that bike and taken it gravel riding. I happen to think they're all fantastic bikes. But which Trek do you own and why? Please let us know in the comment section below. So this particular Emonda is a 2021 model. It's the SL6. It belongs to a friend of mine, Trina, who after seeing it on a group ride, I was complimenting her on a bike and saying, man, that's a great bike. It would be awesome to review that on my channel. And Trina said, Louis, you name the day and time and the bike is yours. Well, not mine, but I could review it. And I'm not saying that, I'm not putting that energy out there for any of my South Florida friends that have bikes that would be cool to review on the channel for them to lend me their bike. That's not the reason why I'm saying that. I'm just giving shout out to Trina and her generosity. Now, even before I get into talking about the drivetrain and componentry of the bike, I'd be remiss if I didn't give Trek's paint department a very strong mention. This is actually a stunning paint job. The bike is basically black, but it has strategic elements of this chameleon flip paint job that just makes the bike look beautiful and is really eye-catching. The bike is equipped with the SRAM Rival 12-speed axis. The chainring is a 4835 and the bike comes equipped with the Quark power meter. The rear cassette is a 1036 12-speed. We've got the Rival full hydraulic brakes with 160 millimeter rotors. Rear rotors are also 160 millimeters. Now, we've got two versions to the Emonda frame set. There's the SLR, which is a lightweight version and comes in at a weight of under 800 grams. The SL, which is a model that we're testing here today, has gotten porky over the years and weighs in at a whopping 1,200 grams. So if you want the lightweight version, you're going to have to pony up some coin. But given the weight of the frame set and the quality of these components, it's easy to see why the complete build came in at over 19 pounds. So I decided to take the bike out to Markham Park to do the Tuesday morning pace line. The pace is usually between 19 and 21 miles an hour. And I thought that that would have been a great place for me to take the bike just to see and flush out some of its characteristics. The first ride impression is how easy was it for me to get on this bike, get comfortable, and start riding it right away. Given that the bike is a 54, which is a good size for me, and that the head tube is 140 millimeter head tube, it was very easy for me to get into my familiar position, be very comfortable and start pedaling efficiently. Once I started riding the bike, I will say that I did feel the heft of the bike. The bike would feel a lot better if the bike came in a little bit closer to about 16 pounds. So let's just say that this Emonda needs to go on about a 3-pound diet. Rolling along on the flats, whether I was going fast or slow, the bike felt the same exact way. The bike gives off this feeling like it's hewed out of granite. I'm not going to say that it feels like a tank. It just feels strong and tight, like it's knitted together really, really well. Now, when I did get into the pace line, whether I was on the front, whether I was second, third wheel, I was all the way in the back, no complaints. I love the way this bike feels. The faster you go, the more you benefit from the aerodynamics of the bike. But definitely, I did like the drivetrain efficiency of these Alias Elite wheel set because I could definitely feel the benefits of the quality bearings that they have included in them. I did take the bike up in speed a little bit, and the bike performs very well at high speed. It's not skittish or anything like that. It feels very planted, responds very well to acceleration, deceleration, going back up in speed again. I did love that feeling that this bike gives. You definitely feel the aerodynamic advantage that this bike has. The minute you start going up, you definitely feel the bike is urging you to, come on, keep going. We've got more to give. And that's one of those things that I really appreciated about this bike. So great job, Trek, on listening to the feedback from the Trek Segafredo Pro Tour team in building the attributes into this bike to make it a world-class racer. It really is something else to ride. Cornering. This bike has a very sharp turning. It's not neutral. It's a little bit quick steering. Once you ride the bike a while, you start to get used to it and you realize that that's what the bike is doing. Now, when you lean the bike and you start railing the corner, the bike stays planted. It doesn't deviate from the line. It does exactly what you initially set the bike down to do. If you have to make a quick adjustment, the bike is a little bit more slow reacting, which is interesting because the turn-in is sharp. But if you've got to make an adjustment, the adjustment doesn't come as sharp as the turn-in. Usually, if a bike is going to turn in very sharply, when you get ready to make some sort of adjustment, the bike is going to be just as quick in responding. Not so with this bike. I did like the feeling that the bike gave when I leaned it into a corner. I could bank and lean and rail the corner and had no issues in terms of feeling like the bike was going to do something that I wasn't expecting. So aces on the cornering attributes. Climbing, I prefer to climb on this bike out of the saddle simply because of the weight. I feel like I need to do a little bit more in terms of torquing the bike, which is fine because you're rewarded with that very stiff bottom bracket, that very stiff head tube reach, and the bike does not let you down in that regard. So in conclusion, I can't think of anything about this bike that I dislike other than the fact that it just weighs a little bit too much. What I'm curious to know is how would you spec out your Emonda if you were considering making this your next bike, or if you're going to consider coming off of either the Domane or the Madone and jump onto the Emonda? Let me know in the comment section below how you would spec the bike. If it were me in my build, I would want the Emonda frame and fork because I think it's an excellent base to build a bike from. And I would want to spec the bike out with components that would get me into the weight range that I needed. I don't know that I would necessarily stick with SRAM, but if I did stick with SRAM, I'd definitely be going with the top range because I believe this frame actually deserves top of the line components. Who is this bike made for? I think this bike is made for the serious racer. I think this bike is made for a person who just wants a bike that's going to perform very purely. It's not going to have a lot of issues with different moving parts or things like that. Like I know the ISOSpeed decoupler is designed to help reduce some road buzz and make the frame more compliant. But I think that this frame is comfortable enough. And I think that there's some things that you can do with tire pressure and saddle selection that can give you the opportunity to achieve the same thing. That's just my opinion. I'm curious to know what you think though. Like I said, if you had to pick a Trek, which one are you leaning towards? I don't know if this review is going to sway you in any way, shape, or form, but I certainly hope that the information is beneficial to you. As always, guys, our aim here at the channel is to inform, instruct, inspire. Be blessed.